welcome to the virtual edition of our year-round member screening series, Film Independent Presents. My name's Jen Wilson. I'm a senior programmer here at Film Independent. I want to thank Film Independent's lead sponsor, the Hollywood Foreign Press Association, and thank you to our new virtual screenings partner, Vision Media. Make sure to check out filmindependent.org's calendar to see what screenings we have coming up. Now, please welcome today's special guest. He's a multi-BAFTA award-winning writer of television shows like The Fades, This Is England 88, The Last Panthers, Skins, National Treasure, and most recently his Dark Materials and The Eddy, which he created, and such films as Wonder, The Aeronauts, Dirt Music, and Radioactive for Amazon, which we're talking about today. For theater, he's written several plays, including the two-part Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. And more importantly, in my book anyway, he wrote a dramatic version of one of my favorite movies of all time, Let the Right One In. Please welcome Mr. Jack Thorne.
Hello. Hello.
Hi. How are you?
Very good, very good. I'm so pleased you like Let the Right One In. It's
Yes.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful story.
I'm obsessed with that movie. I rewatch it all the time. Were you inspired to write the adaptation based on the book or based on the movie version?
You know what? We used both, and we thought about both because the book, as you may or may not know, goes a bit crazy in the last bits. Lindqvist changed it up a little for the film with on the backing of Thomas. I mean, it's amazing the talking with Lindqvist about it and seeing the journey that he went on with the telling and how he discovered things that he didn't know as a result of the way that Thomas framed it. And it was a very interesting process. And then we just tried to tell it for the stage in a slightly different way. But it was a lot of fun.
I absolutely adore that movie. And I think that they made an American adaptation of it, which I didn't enjoy as much, and I think is because of the casting of the little girl. I think the casting of the child in it for me was key to the reason why the first one worked so well.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the American one's very interesting too, and they made some very interesting choices too. So it's right. But yeah, no, we had Rebecca playing our lead. And she was extraordinary. I think she played it for about 2 years off and on different stages, and did incredible things with her voice. Thought very carefully about her physicality. It was a wonder to watch her work.
So I apologize. I know we're here to talk about Radioactive. One more question about Let the Right One In. So this ran for a long time, like on the West End then?
It did. So we did a month in Dundee. We did a month on the Royal Court in London. We did 6 months in the West End. And I think we did 2 or 3 months at St. Anne's Warehouse in Brooklyn. And then we toured it around America and Scotland. And then we've done a month at the Abbey in Dublin, and we've done bits and pieces all over the world. You know, we've done productions in Korea and productions in Australia, and so it's one of those. The wonderful thing about theatre is you get to see it remade over and over again, and it's you're always learning different things and discovering different things.
I'm kind of shocked that a production hasn't been mounted here, like a bigger production hasn't been mounted here, Broadway or off Broadway. It's crazy.
Well, St. Anne's is an amazing theatre. So I think that to get a run there was pretty incredible.
Fantastic. So let's talk about you first. We're so Film Independent is a member organization, and many of our members are aspiring filmmakers and writers. Do you want to talk first about your career trajectory? And how, just because I think, other people who are aspiring writers would love to know how to break in and have a career like yours. Although I don't think many people have a career exactly like yours because it's amazing. But do you want to talk about how you started how you got into TV and film and theater writing?
Yeah, I mean, I was sort of a person that was kind of like just throw as much stuff against the wall as you possibly can, that kind of writer. Um, and uh, and try and I always sort of treated them as different disciplines. So I was sort of trying to have different journeys in each. So I was making short films. I was trying to put on, trying to get plays made, and then and then I was trying to get people interested in my TV stuff. I got very lucky with three things. Um, the first was that I got hired by Pavel Pawlikowski, who is a genius, and I worked with him and his producer Tanya Sagachin for a year, and during that time learnt like it was the greatest film school I've ever been part of, working with them. And it was just a very close unit of people, and we were just developing stuff and talking all the time about films and what works. And Pavel was sending me off to go and watch Come and See, and you know what I mean, like, and going, you need to feed this brain. And so that was really important. At the same time, I was writing scripts, and a theatre called the Bush Theatre, which is based in Shepherd's Bush in London, an incredible independent theatre, put on one of my plays called When You Cure Me, which was a play about trauma and recovery from trauma. But the two creators of Skins came and saw it and decided that I had a future in comedy drama, and very kindly brought me onto their writing team. So and then I was writing a film at the same time, and that got made quite a film called Scaring But for Boys, and that got made about the same year. So just everything sort of happened at once in a very crazy and very, very lucky way. I got very, very lucky, basically. So I don't know that mine is something where you kind of go, oh, that was the path. It was just sort of like, I'm going to write all the time and hope that someone likes me eventually, that sort of path. I didn't do any networking really. I just sort of just kept working.
And had you focused on writing or studied writing at university as well?
Oh, no. I did a degree in politics, which totally useless. During which I got very, very ill. But I wrote plays while I was at university, and there was a big amateur drama scene at my university, and so that helped. But probably getting ill helped as much. I had to at my university, it was called degrade. I had to degrade myself and take a year off when I got this condition which made me allergic to radiators, sunlight, and my own body movement. So I was flat on my back for 6 months. And I think that probably helped me quite a lot too, in terms of just that sort of like living in hell way that somehow triggers stuff.
I'm so glad you recovered from that. That sounds very serious.
It was pretty horrible for a bit. And I was ill with it for about 15 years, but on medication that allowed me to control it. And now it's sort of lifted, but it's I think with things like that that change your life, sometimes being shaken like that really helps you. And I think it probably did help me. I think I was probably a bit mad, and it made me stop. And I think I needed to stop. And I think the process of stopping was good for me. I wouldn't recommend it. It wasn't pleasant, but I think it sort of set things right in my head a tiny bit. Though my response to it was to live alone for a very long time. So I don't know that it did, but you know what I mean? Like, yeah.
So sometimes traumatic things like that also help you like sort of laser focus in on what's most important. You don't take your health for granted anymore. So some people would call you a somewhat prolific writer. Do you have a regular writing practice that you follow? Like you write a certain number of hours a day, a certain number of hours per week, and in a certain place, something like this, or do you sort of let whatever project you're working on dictate your writing practice?
Bit of everything. I've never really. I I lived on my own in a town where no one knew me for 7.5 years. I had a couple of friends there, but really I lived, the biggest socializing I did was at the supermarket when I bought groceries. And then I would write from 8 in the morning till 10 at night every day and 7 days a week. I was ridiculously obsessed about it. I then got married and now I have a child and now we're in lockdown. So I am writing less than I've ever written in my life because I've got to look after a kid every now and again. I don't know what. So at the moment everything's in flux and everything's been in flux since I think we locked down on the 14th of March. Our household did. So I've that's a big change in my life, and I'm still sort of reeling from the effects of it. I like writing a lot. I tend to process my life better, that my wife will send me off to write when I'm being a bit manic. She'll just go, don't watch the TV with me tonight, go away and write something. And she's generally right. She's a saint. But yeah, I just try and write as much as I possibly can because I'm obsessed with it.
All right. It's a great thing to be obsessed with.
Yeah.
I wish I was obsessed.
I love the blank page more than anything else in the world.
Wow.
I love first drafts. I love that. Do you know what I mean? Not more than anything else in the world. I love my son. He's amazing. But do you know what I mean? And I love my wife. But second to them, do you know what I mean? That process of just kind of the excitement of getting it down. It still gives me a thrill to this day. I've been doing it 20 years now, and it still gets me buzzing.
That's so interesting because I think so many people would say the opposite. They would say that the blank page is the most terrifying thing that they ever face.
Yeah, it is terrifying, but that's the exciting thing. It's like, you know what I mean? It's like people that going on zip lines and throwing themselves off cliffs. I just like that the exhilaration of that process of going, write a character's name and then go, oh shit, I've got no idea what he's going to say or she's going to say or they're going to say. And do you know what I mean? And you just kind of go, oh, right, okay, this is the beginning. I love that bit.
So let's talk about Radioactive. So this script is based on a book, correct?
Yes, by the great Lauren Redniss.
Was this something that somebody asked you to adapt or something that you wanted to do personally as a project?
It was it was an assignment that Paul Webster and Joe Wright sent it to me, and it would have been about 9 years ago now. So it was a project that sort of sat in, I wrote it for Joe. Joe went off to do Pan instead, and it sat in a bottom drawer for a very long time. And then Studio Canal was saying, we're interested in Marie Curie, and Working Title said, we've got a Marie Curie script. Studio Canal read it, and then suddenly we would go again. So it was a case of getting to know it again, getting to know how I'd written it, because I'd changed as a writer so much since then, and getting to know, getting back into what Lauren had done, because the extraordinary thing about her book, and it's an incredible book, it's really, really worth reading, is it's a beautiful set of graphics with biography attached to it. And that the biography is of two different things. It's a biography of radioactivity and it's a biography of Marie Curie. And trying to be true to that was the hardest bit of the writing process. And I know the hardest bit of the edit for Marjan.
So that draft that you wrote years ago, did you end up making a lot of changes to it before the screen version?
Yeah, and then Marjan became involved, and Marjan changed it again, and there were lots of changes. I can't really. because it's such a jigsaw of a film, and actually what's on the screen is very different from what I wrote because of that jigsaw. You know, the way that my jigsaw works is very different from the way I had a voiceover all the way through it. So it's a very different sort of experience. And then so that necessitated changes in terms of once we're in the edit and it was like that's not working and that's not, and do you know what I mean? That, you know, so it's been a very tricky but wonderful process. Marjan is an incredible woman.
So do you work closely, like do you whenever you're a film adaptation's being made of something that you've written, do you actually spend any time on set, or are you consulted during the actual filmmaking process?
Not much, and Marjan is a writer, so Marjan had the film that she wanted to tell. Do you know what I mean? You know, and she was there making that film. I think that it depends on the project in terms of how much you're involved and how much, you know, Marjan would have had me there very happily because Marjan's brilliant and collaborative. There's other directors where you go, I don't think I'd have any space here whatsoever. And there's others where I go, I need to be here because do you know what I mean? Like, you know, I'm not as comfortable with this. And then there's television where it's like, I need to be here because it's my version, it's not their version. You know, I think with films, you know, it's a director's medium, you know, like, you know, and I don't know, maybe I surrender too easily to that, but I do think that that's, do you know what I mean? Like, you know, if a film's going to fire, it's because the director has a story that they want to tell, and that you have told the story that you're going to tell, and you've produced it as a script, and now they can go off and dance with it and change it, and do you know what I mean? Like, you know, and make it theirs, you know.
Yeah, it's interesting to say. It's interesting to hear you say that that's what your expectation of the filmmaking process is, because I'm not sure all screenwriters view it that way. Sometimes they
Yeah, and
view it as a betrayal of what they've written, but you sound like you're open to someone else interpreting, once again, your original vision.
yes, I mean, I'd say that instinctively I'm a lieutenant, not a captain. You know, like, you know, I'm not someone that kind of goes, I hope I've got the ranks right, but I don't know much about the military. But you know, that thing of just kind of like, I'm instinctively someone that's very happy to be in someone's shadow. I like that bit. And I'd say the best stuff I've done is with someone where they had a story that they were telling and I could fit in and do my best within that story. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, and I think what I'm trying to challenge myself to do as a writer now is step up a bit and challenge those notions in my head, because I think I've become a bit timid, and I need to address that a bit. You know, like, you know, I think that, you know, you can decide something about yourself, and then that becomes the only story you're telling. And I think that I probably need to look at that and go, you know, stick your hand in the air a bit more and go, what about, or but what about, or have you considered? Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, and that's, you know, yeah. So I'm learning.
Um, you sound like a classic introvert, like myself. Classic introverts, I think, uh, often have to talk themselves into, dialogues with people that are gonna, when you're gonna disagree or
Yeah,
propose another opinion.
yeah, yeah.
Um, so, did you do also any independent research of your own on Mary Carey when you were
Yeah,
writing the
yeah,
script?
tons. And the big thing I did was, because working title said, what do you need? And I said, I can get the history. I can read enough books on the history. I don't need a historian feeding me bits. I feel like I'm comfortable with that, and we can do that process later. The thing I need is someone to explain to me her genius, because I can understand it, a little bit, but my science was poor, and I need someone to go, this is how the atom works. This is how things work within it. This is what she did. This is how she reinterpreted the atom. This is how, this is the misunderstanding that she corrected. And so they gave me science lessons where I just basically went back to school and tried to understand, her genius. And that was really fun, really complicated, and really hard. But that was I'd say the biggest bit of research I did outside of just reading a ton of books and trying to ingest as much as possible about the time, how she fitted in with the time, what was going on with her, what was going on with Pierre, all that stuff.
Yeah, I found one of the most interesting aspects of this story. It's a really interesting. Her story is really interesting to re-examine at this point, in time when we're, discussing all kinds of women's rights issues again, and she, lived at a time where she had to really fight for her existence in the Science Academy in France because it was dominated by men. But the dynamic between her and Pierre, I think I was reading that she almost didn't get named on the first Nobel that she and Pierre and their colleague won together, until another male colleague fought for her name to be on it.
Yeah, Pierre. Yeah. And
did you think that he was for many years taking credit for the work that she had done when you did the research, or that he was not intentionally doing that, but he was being given credit because he was the male partner?
I think, yeah, I think Pierre was a pretty enlightened person, and I think that there's certain aspects of unconscious bias within him that I think would be challenged now, particularly the substance of that speech, which she challenges in the film, where there's a lot of I, and I think that's really difficult. But at the same time, he was her partner, and he never tried to, from what I gather, do you know what I mean? And obviously history is very hard to look back on, from what I gather, he never tried to make it any less than a partnership. Do you know what I mean? Whether she was right that it was her genius that was the fundamental thing, probably it was. Do you know what I mean? The interesting thing and the battle within the film is that obviously with biopics, the temptation is always to go for a period. Do you know what I mean? Is to not try and tell the whole thing. But the thing with Mary is that her life was so extraordinary that the idea of going, oh, there was this bit that I'm going to focus on, or there's this bit that I'm going to focus on, and you sort of needed the whole scope of it, which, maybe I wouldn't ever try and do again. Do you know what I mean? But it was really, that thing of just kind of going, that this incredible bloody-minded scientist that just kind of took on the world, and even when she succeeded, the world rejected her. Do you know what I mean? And then so she then brushed herself off and she did it again. Do you know what I mean? She just was incredible. She lived the most ridiculous life, and so trying to tell the story of that life felt very important.
This conversation, there's a conversation she has with her daughter, Irene, towards the end of the film. Irene wants to marry a scientist and also, like her mother, be
look
a
into
part.
radioactivity.
Wants to partner with her future husband on the research as well. And her mother says something like, um, okay, but I really don't think that you should be a part of your partner's, your male partner's experiments. And does she caution her also against doing radioactivity because they've discovered that it's dangerous? Yeah, it's making people ill to study this. Why do you think that she said those things to her daughter? And then she ends up saying, because they didn't bring me very much happiness.
Yeah.
Do you think that's the way that she really felt about her career? And
I think it's what she felt then. And I think that then things started to turn around for her. And I think the Petit Curie was the sort of thing that brought everything back together for her. At least in my telling. Do you know what I mean? Like, again, history, it's so hard to say that there's an objective truth. Do you know what I mean? Like, but that sense of that last battle that then made sense of the life, I think that gave her great satisfaction and revitalized her,
I'm curious if because I think the last speech that Pierre makes in the film, he expresses not necessarily regret, but the dangers of what he's discovered could be a warning about what his inventions could be used for. And I'm wondering if you found evidence that Mary had sort of regrets about, even though they didn't live to see the atom bomb and they didn't live to see Chernobyl, had regrets about what their inventions would be, or not inventions, but discoveries, radium and polonium, what they would be used for if they would be used for the bad instead of the good.
In Pierre's first speech, in Pierre's first Nobel speech, well, Pierre's only Nobel speech, he talked explicitly about, so Nobel invented dynamite. So that's what that whole, the Nobel Prize is celebrating dynamite. And Pierre talked about how that Nobel himself was aware that this thing could be taken and used for bad. But he believed in society and he believed in humanity and he believed that good would come of forward momentum. I think Pierre and Marie felt exactly the same. And it's really, really complicated that what she did, barely has an equal in science in the last century, in terms of how much change it brought about. If you did a calculation of good and bad, it would be very hard to know what the right answer would be. And would other people have got there without her? Who knows? Would anyone else be? I'm going to use the bloody minded word again, but bloody minded to spend 4 years with a tin bath and a ton of pitch blend to isolate certain bits. So I think it's really complicated. So yeah, and I think she probably would have. I don't know how she'd have felt, and I think the film is supposed to be a question mark about that. It's not supposed to be that this is how. But I hope she would feel the same way that Pierre felt giving that speech. I think that they were the most incredible couple in terms of how they saw the world, and I hope that what he said in that speech reflected both of them, and continued to be the story that reflected both of them.
So you've written several adaptations now, right?
Yes.
What is the starting point for writing an adaptation, or your starting point? Is it a matter of just reading the source material and sort of taking notes on what you think would be, what you see are the best parts to dramatize, and then starting from there, or what is your process?
No, I think it's working out what the central question is. in the book, and then working out from there. So with His Dark Materials, the central question I felt like was goodness versus greatness. So every time I'm just saying His Dark Materials because it's the thing I've been working on for so long, and I'm working on today. But you know that I'm constantly going back to that question that I think Philip poses about, and Philip poses it through the conceit of choosing a child intent on goodness rather than her father who is intent on greatness. That Philip makes that choice in the soul of the book, in my opinion, and so you look for that soul and then you jump off of it. So and I think what Lauren was doing with this was, you know, what is it to create, and I think everything bounces off that thing of what is it to create, and that Frankenstein question of the incredible amount of work that went into it, and then the incredible pain of knowing that this has consequences beyond what you thought it might.
Would you say that you have so you work in different mediums, and that you write drama and you write for television and you write
Stage.
Films?
Yes.
Would you say that you have a preference for any one medium, or you just kind of enjoy bits about each one?
I enjoy bits about each one. I find television, and I don't mean this, I find television the most straightforward. I sort of understand the rhythm of television easiest. Film can sometimes be bewildering, and certainly what comes out at the end is very different from what's been put into the machine. And that sometimes can feel like, oh, right, okay, that's that thing. And then how do I do that the next time to feed the right things into the machine? You know, television, you kind of go, oh, okay, I understand that I'm playing around with advertising breaks, or I'm playing around with the BBC hour. I know what that should look like, and then I know what that will feel like at the end of the process. Stage is impossible, but the process is the best, because when you make it, you're making it in a room with a group of actors. You're part of the telling in such a intrinsic way, and if it goes wrong, then you sort of understand the bit that went. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, you can see the engine most clearly in a stage play. So yeah, no, I like all of them, but all of them have different problems and different excitements.
So you're often involved in many projects at once. How do you, I mean, just looking at your IMDb credits, you have things that are coming on now, like Dirt Music is coming out currently, right?
Yes.
And within the next few weeks, and then Radioactive. And then you have Enola Sherlock. Is that
Enola Holmes?
Enola Holmes.
Enola Holmes.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Coming out
Sherlock's
on
little
Netflix.
sister. Yeah.
I just read an article the other day that the estate of Arthur Conan Doyle sued about that project. Is it an honor being sued by the estate of Arthur Conan Doyle?
I don't understand any of it. I've just kind of gone. Okay. And the legendary are incredible. They're an amazing bunch of people, and Mary just phoned me and Harry up and went, "It's fine. It's going to be fine. Just let us work through it. It will be all right." Do you know what I mean? Like, you know,
Yeah.
and I hope it will be. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, but you know, I'm just sort of leaving it to Mary to deal with, which she's amazing.
Right.
I do have lots of things going on. These happened in a lump, but actually they were all written in such different times. Enola I wrote most recently. Enola was, quite a quick journey from page to screen. So it was, whereas with answering your questions on Marie, I'm already worried that, just answering them, I'm already worried about timelines, which were like concrete in my head. Do you know what I mean? Like, but I think it's 2.5 years since we shot it or something. So, do you know what I mean? Like, I'm just worried that things have gone from my head that shouldn't be there, but I hope I've given you the right answers. And then, but I like working, and I need to work on two things at once. If I work on more than two things at once, then I start to go wrong. But I need to work on two things at once, because you can be a failure in one thing and have something to look forward to. You know what I mean? Like, that when you're sitting there and you're going, Pan and Lyra need to talk to each other. Pan and Lyra need to talk to each other. What are they going to say to each other? I'm just going to write some words. Oh, they're awful. I'm a terrible writer. And then it's like, oh, but I can now turn to Enola Holmes and have Enola have a conversation with Sherlock. And, oh, that feels better. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not as awful as I think. Do you know what I mean? Like, that I find that very helpful. And I know not many people like working that way, but I find it very that process of like cleansing through working on something else, and then you can go back to something with a fresh head and a fresh attack, and really see it in a different way. It
Oh,
feels
wow,
very
that's
helpful
really
to me.
interesting. Yeah, that's really interesting. That you're working on writing more than one thing at a time.
I mean, when I was writing Harry Potter, at the same time I was writing a TV show called National Treasure. National Treasure was about historical sex crimes. Harry Potter's about wizards.
Yes.
Having both those in my head really helped the other. Do you know what I mean? Like, and actually I feel like inform the other and inform the choices that I made in the other. I don't know, it just kept me fresher.
It's interesting, as an American, when I was reading through your credits, some stuff I know very well of yours, and other stuff, I guess it's just didn't
Very
come
British.
didn't come to
Yeah.
the United States. Like, This Is England, 88. I had never heard of that. I have, of course, heard of Skins. Skins is very big in the United States. That was a major, like, United States Anglophile series to watch, with Skins. Do you have a project that you have worked on that you get asked most about in interviews? Like, do you get asked most about Harry Potter or most about Skins, or what are you asked most about that you worked on?
Harry Potter every time, because
Yeah.
it's a behemoth. With that, it's really, I don't understand how it hasn't happened. Shane Meadows, who's the guy who I did this thing in 86, 88, and 90 with, and then this new thing, The Virtues, is profoundly brilliant. Like, I've worked with him for 12, 13 years, and for some reason, he's never found a home on American television. I don't understand why, really. I think The Virtues is on Topics, I think, on a streamer. I think The Virtues is it's certainly one of the best things I've ever done. It's Stephen Graham's best performance, in my opinion. Stephen Graham is extraordinary in it, and Stephen Graham's an actor that's known in the States. And I don't know why an FX or a Hulu or because I think you guys would really dig it, and it's just a mad thing. But yeah, like, who knows how these things work? Who knows how these
Yeah.
they go down very well on British TV,
Right.
but then they just don't translate internationally for some reason.
Well, I'd say with what's going on with streaming right now, there's a good chance that all your work will end up on either Netflix or Hulu or Amazon.
In the UK, I'm asked about This Is England and Shane and The Virtues as much as I'm asked about. Well, not as much as I'm asked about J.K. Rowling, because J.K. Rowling dominates everything. But do you know what I mean? Like, certainly as much as I'm asked about anything else. It's a madness. But there we are.
Yeah, I mean, I watched National Treasure because it was on Hulu. It was sort of a dual, like, I have a friend who's from the UK who lives upstairs from me, and we were talking about Andrea Riseborough and how I'm obsessed with her, and he's like, oh, well, you have to watch National Treasure. It's on Hulu, so that's why. And then I actually got to meet her a few years ago. She actually lives here in Los Angeles. So
she's amazing, isn't she? Astonishing.
stunning.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
everything that she does, I'm just crazy
yeah,
about.
yeah.
Well, I think we're at our time mark, and I know that you have work that you need to do today. So thank you so much. It was such a pleasure getting to chat with you.
Thank you
And
so much. It's really nice chatting to you.
excited about Radioactive coming out on Amazon and getting out to the world. And good luck on everything that you're working on. I'm always excited to see what you have coming up.
Thank you. Thank you. Really nice chatting. Awesome.
Take
All
care,
right.
Jack.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.